Hello and welcome to our presentation about surveys. That is the elicitation technique that we were assigned. It was written and presented by Benjamin Thought and Cameron Thackeray. We're going to start with the definition of a survey according to survey methodology. A survey is a systematic method for gathering information from a sample of entities for the purpose of constructing quantitative descriptors of the attributes of the larger population of which the entities are members. This basically means that we can't talk to everybody, but if we can talk to a large enough group of people, then we can predict what the rest of the people are going to say, which is very useful. So whenever I was assigned this topic, one of the first questions I had was the difference between a survey and a questionnaire. When doing the reading, they sounded almost interchangeable. And some people do use them that way. But according to surveymonkey.com, questionnaires are a tool. They're a list of questions that surveys use. But surveys themselves are a broader term used to describe the questions and the delivery of the questions and the analysis of the responses.
So some important terms to understand. Surveys are taken in order to gather information from what should be a randomly selected group of people to describe a population. Population is the total representation of a demographic you are looking to describe, and a sample is the group of people who have taken the survey that will represent that population.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you're looking to survey an attitude like what people dread in those over the age of 70 in the United States, and you have 35 people who take the survey who meet those requirements, the population would be every adult in the United States over 70, and the sample would be the 35 participants that took the survey.
So I wanted to bring this up at least once. Surveys in pop culture, everyone knows them from Family Feud. They use the sample size of their audience to kind of calculate the most common answers to this question. I thought this was interesting, so I decided to add it in as a thing that everyone could kind of look to and know what a survey was.
Some sampling methods used to conduct surveys is just a short list of some of the possible methods, but there's a simple random sample, which is a subset of statistical population in which each member of the subset has an equal probability of being chosen. Basically, the most random and effective way to conduct a sample. And then you have a stratified sampling. The population is divided into groups based on a characteristic. Then a simple random sample is taken from each group. And you have cluster sampling, where each member of the population is assigned to a group called a cluster. Then a sample of clusters is taken using a simple random sample. Then we have the convenience sample. A convenience sample is made up of people who are easily reached. This is often considered the worst method for conducting a survey.
So after you decide your population and your sample, you also have to decide how you're going to distribute the questionnaire and collect the information. This has changed a lot over the years, starting with traditionally things like canvassing, where you're going out and talking to people on the street, using a telephone or using like the postal service to try to reach people in their homes, where that was very time consuming and could take a lot of time and effort. And today we have more useful tools like email and social media, and there's even companies that will do all the surveying for you. And on top of that, there's apps that companies have created for us to use to make surveying as easy as possible. Some of the top survey apps that are available that I found online were things like SurveyMonkey, Ask Nicely, Birdseye, and KeySurvey. A recent web-based study project shows the demographics for groups using online surveys. 70% are for marketing teams, 27% are for information systems. This is the kind of survey that we would be doing to try to gather information to create this kind of app. And there's also, the rest of it's like management and economics. the significant, this is just showing that more and more people are moving towards using the internet as a way to conduct surveys because it's so much easier and faster than other traditional methods.
Some pros of using a survey include information from a large number of users can be collected at the same time. And depending on the distribution method, it can be quick and easy to analyze the data. It's relatively cheap. Data analysis performed on the results makes trends easy to identify. And using a survey is also complementary with other forms of elicitation techniques. Some of the cons include that rich data collection is not possible, does not provide the complete view of a system, or everyone's views, if you want to put it that way. If your sample size does not correlate with the average user, then the data will be irrelevant. Depending on the sample size, it could take a long time to collect all the information. Surveys are usually cheap, but costs could include mailing lists, reply paid envelopes, printings, and research assistance. And if the questions are not well written, the data received is not helpful. So when should you use a survey? You should use a survey when the population size is large, you have a small budget, and you're looking to describe characteristics of a population. Although using a survey could be inappropriate if the population size is very small or information needs to be kept confidential. So if you were designing an app for one person, you probably won't need a survey. You could just talk to that one person.
Now we're going to talk about our survey. Our sample size, well, the population we're looking for would be like people, general users of the app, which could be anyone who's expecting a child or anyone who wants to look up names for some other reason. Our personal sample was only 10 people. This would be a convenient sample because we just used people that were around us. It was kind of all we could throw together in the time that we had. The questions we asked, on a scale from 1 to 5, how likely would you be to use a baby names app? What features are most important to you? What features would be deal breakers? And how long before a baby is born do you decide on a name? For the questions that we could put to a graph to kind of show the trends, we found that the interest in using an app like this is pretty even across the board, with a slight dip in the 1 out of 5, 1 being not interested. And as a side note, the 1s and 2s are all men. And the other side, we have how long before a baby is born do you decide on a name? We see the general trend is somewhere between 3 months before the baby is born up to kind of the day the baby is born. And that is the results of our closed-ended questions.
So things people want to see, they want to be able to look or sort the names. They want to be able to have a rating system so they can rate each names. They want a simple UI, and they want suggestions based on past preferences. Some things that people don't want to see, they don't want the UI to be ugly, and they want the way that everything's presented them to look nice. They don't want their information sold to other companies. They don't want it to be too complicated, and they don't want lots of ads on application.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. These are the end of it, and here we have cited our sources. That's all.